Hey radio friends, it's Mike, Kilo Echo Zero Victor India Mike, frequent sharer of adventures in national parks. And how is it that I can do that? Is it legal? This has been an interesting topic of late. Kind of similar if you're in the gun community to the short-barreled rifle, or, well, no, more accurately, it's the rifle calibered pistols, and how that definition changes if you put on a stock or a, what do they call it? The arm support strap or whatever that is. And is that legal? And is it legal if you hold it out here, or if you put it up here up against your shoulder? And there's been all kinds of changes in interpretation, and letters have been sent out constantly changing it from this way to that. It's hard to know what's the right thing to do. Filming and sharing experiences within national parks has been very similar. And it's caused a lot of people out there, frankly, to be scared of filming themselves in national parks and then sharing it on a commercial social media platform like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. Now, some people, I won't point any fingers here, but some people, regardless of the information that there is out there, just go out and do it anyway. But there's a general fear that the Parks Department, the Interior Department, the federal government will come after you and fine you if you're sharing this stuff online. Here's why. So back in 2021, there was a van life channel, a couple that travels the country in their van, my kind of people. There was a van life channel that got a cease and desist order, and they got fined over $1,000 for what seemed to be sharing video in a national park. And indeed, they kind of sold it that way, and I think they oversold that point to make their videos seem more interesting and draw more clicks. I won't say clickbaiting. I think that's used too much. I think it's a strategy that they used intelligently to try to get more views and make more money. But what really got them in trouble was they purchased a license to use someone else's drone footage that was taken inside a national park. Now, you are not allowed under any circumstances, well, I better not say that because someone will prove me wrong on some exception. Every rule has an exception. Generally, you better assume you cannot fly drones inside a national park. So when they released video that included drone footage inside a national park, even though it was not their own, they paid to use, they got fined. And on top of that, it seemed like the government threw any other charge they could on them as well, including this obscure rule about filming and sharing inside national parks, then sharing it on a commercial social media platform. So a law was enacted. It actually wasn't that long ago. It was back in the original law wasn't that old. It was back in 2000 that it was written. But keep in mind, there's not a lot of social media in the year 2000. It didn't really exist back then. Okay, MySpace wasn't founded until 2003. Facebook was in 2004. YouTube was 2005. Twitter was 2006. Instagram was 2010. TikTok wasn't until 2016. Obviously, none of these are around in the year 2000 when this law is written. And the rule was written to keep companies or film production crews from clogging up national parks with lots of people and equipment and reducing the experience of the general public being able to go out and enjoy the park. So this rule was written that if you filmed and somehow shared video from within a park, you had to have a permit for obvious reasons. Then when social media came along, it seemed like that rule got applied to social media, because obviously YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all those sites, TikTok, they're commercial entities. So when I film and I put it up there, that's film within a national park being used for a commercial purpose. Now, the reasoning behind that wasn't so that the federal government could make a little bit of money off whatever money you were making on this video that you were sharing. That wasn't the point. It was to control what people did within the park through the permit process. So trails wouldn't get blocked, access to overviews wouldn't get blocked. It was so the public's access to the park would not be impeded in any way. That was the spirit of that law. It wasn't the government saying, hey, we want our cut out of it too. So if you're going to make money, we're going to make money. The permit fees weren't even enough to matter in that regard. But something really cool has happened here recently. The government actually did something very cool. I'm just going to pause for a second because those words don't come out of my mouth very often. The federal government did something pretty cool in the lame duck session after the election and before new Congress and president were sworn in. The Explore Act was passed. And this is something that's been in the works for years. It's been quite some effort to get this passed. And it wasn't its first effort, but it did get passed. So the Explore Act was passed by the U.S. House. It was passed with broad bipartisan support in April of 2024. Okay, this is before the election. The Senate then took care of business in December 19, after the election, still in 2024, and passed the Explore Act themselves. Then it went to the president's desk and Joe Biden signed it in January 4th of 2025, making the Explore Act now a law. Okay, so what? What is this bill going to do? Well, first let's discuss what this bill isn't. It's not an appropriation of a lot of money to get stuff done in our park. It is the expression of initiative to make improvements in the national parks that have been needed for quite some time. And it provided a needed clarification on the rule about filming in national parks. So a number of things are going to be studied for development as a result of this bill. And I think what the result will be is 10 or 20 years from now, when we're visiting national parks, our experience is going to be substantially different from the experiences that we have today. And our parks are going to be greatly improved. And this bill is going to be why. So here's some of the stuff that's in the bill, and then we'll get to the filming and national park business. The Secretary of the Interior is instructed to research and initiate a process to develop long-distance biking trails within the country. They are to study and find opportunities for improvement for climbers' access to climbing trails within our national park system. There's language to develop shooting ranges in a lot of national park entities where possible. Now keep in mind, this isn't just national parks, but any entity that's within the National Park Service to provide safe areas for target shooting. Improving motorized and non-motorized access. More investigation into invasive species. Investigating ways of investing in gateway communities. A lot of times the little towns that struggle right outside of major parks because, a nearby national park can increase land values and make it difficult for people who work in those towns to be able to afford to live in those towns. There are to be improvements on providing real-time information to the general public visiting parks. There is to be improvements for persons with disabilities to more trails and recreational opportunities. There are to be recreational and job opportunities created for military members and veterans. There is to be a general increase in youth access to recreational lands. The issuance of permits for entities within the National Park Service is to be updated. And I think they're going to try to get some sort of online service so you can purchase your permits online. You don't have to sit there at the gate of Yellowstone and purchase your permit and take all the time to do that while everyone behind you is waiting to get into the park. I really like that improvement. They're going to study how to improve cell service within some of these remote national park entities. Selena and I joke often where we pull into a national park, it seems like you're in a cell phone bubble. As soon as you cross the gate, cell service goes out. Well, the National Park Service has clued into the fact that when it comes to public safety and rescue operations and things like that, it's good to have cell service within a national park. And, honestly, they've probably known that for a while, but the question is, how do you do it? How do you do it in a way that protects these parks without putting, cell towers all over in these assets that we have? So what's the most sensitive way to do that? So there's all kinds of ways that this bill is going to improve our national park service experience, and that's all well and good. But here's the real juicy part of this bill that I like. There has been a clarification to the issue of filming and sharing photography and videography in national park entities. Not a rule change, a clarification. Here's some text. The Secretary shall not require an authorization or a permit or assess a fee if a fee for a filming or still photography activity is not otherwise required by law. For a filming or still photography activity that, and then it lists a number of conditions, okay? Your crew has to involve fewer than 6 individuals. Okay, I don't think there's anyone out there in HamTube that goes out with a crew of 6 people or more. I don't think that's a thing. Usually it's 1, maybe 2. If that activity is merely incidental to or documenting an activity or an event that is already allowed or authorized at that unit, okay? So we're not filming something we're not supposed to be doing in parks anyway, therefore it's okay. As long as you are filming in a manner that does not impede or intrude on the experience of others. Okay, I've talked in a lot of videos, whether it's Zion, Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, any of these wonderful assets. We got people from all over the world that travel here to visit these parks. I do not want to get in their way. I want to get my shot. I want to get, I want to shoot my video with a pretty background, but I'm going to find a way to do that where I'm not clogging up some highly used area and prohibit others from being able to enjoy that spot. Honestly, if I did do that, it's a lose-lose. It's less enjoyable for them, and my video is not as good either. So why would I want to do that? As long as you're not impeding the access of others to that site, you're good. Don't block trails. You're not blocking an overlook point. You're just not in the way in general. As long as you're not disturbing a natural or cultural resource or an environmental or scenic value. As long as you're at a location where the public is allowed anyway, okay? Makes sense? As long as you're not requiring the exclusive use of a site or area. All right, well, that seems to make sense. As long as you're not in a localized area that receives a very high volume of visitation. I guess that can be interpreted a number of different ways, but just don't be in a super crowded area. We shouldn't be using a set or staging equipment. I can't imagine anything that anyone uses as far as filming ham radio YouTube out in a park, being interpreted as having a set or staging equipment, a gimbal, a light. I don't think so. As long as you're complying with and adhering to visitor use policies, practices, and regulations, and you comply with other applicable federal, state, and local laws. Okay, so according to all this, as long as you meet all those fairly common sense conditions, and you have less than 6 people in your crew, you do not need a permit to film and share that film within a national park. Hooray, federal government. Again, words that do not come out of my mouth very often. Hooray, federal government. Common sense won over the day, and something was clarified that needed to be clarified. The Explore Act allows you to film within a national park, share that online, regardless of the fact that that platform is a commercial entity, and you do not need a permit to do so. I've heard a few people that actually did try the permitting process, and these are people that travel like us, and we're going to go up the coast here and we're going to visit 9 or 10 national parks. It would be a huge burdensome process to try to apply for permits in every single one to go there and film and pay something like, I think it was $300 per permit to be able to get in there and do that months in advance, to just get denied for all of them because no one wants to say yes. it was just the whole process was so prohibitive. It was ridiculous to even try. It wasn't intended for people like us. That's why. There's a lot of people out filming and sharing our ham radio experiences, which is a good thing. And now we know, without a doubt, you can do that in a national park, in a national historic site, a national recreation area, and you can share that online, not have to have a permit. I'm Mike, Kilo Echo Zero Victor India Mike. This is the Travelin' Ham. Get out there and share the good news. 7-3.